Hello, students. Welcome to my free real estate class. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a serious class, so I want you to be prepared to take notes. You're going to learn more about real estate in this free class than you ever imagined possible. Let's start with some introductions. My name is Warren Nelson, and in the state of Pennsylvania, I am known as Warren Nelson. I'm also known as the real estate instructor. I am the director of Online Real Estate School Incorporated. The first thing, ladies and gentlemen, that you as a student should do before you decide to invest or enroll in a school is to verify with the Bureau of Professional and Occupational Affairs website that that school is licensed to offer this 75-hour state required class and that school is in good standing. Let me show you how this is done. This will be the site that you will be going to, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see, it is pal.pa.gov. All right, I'll give all this to you shortly. And what you want to do using this state site is do a verification. And in this situation, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to do a facility search, as you can see. So if I click onto the facility search, it'll ask if it can use your current location. That's up to you. One of the first things that you want to do is click this drop down menu and go to the real estate commission because you are now looking into a school for your real estate license and put in the name of my school, which is Online Real Estate School. So you'll put in a name, you'll do a search, ladies and gentlemen, and here's what you will see. This is my school. Here is my license numbers. These are other locations. So this is what you want to inquire into, the license. Now notice that this is the Bureau of Professional and Occupational Affairs website. As I said to you earlier, let's see if we can blow this up for you so you guys can see that. Bureau of Professional and Occupational Affairs website. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, Online Real Estate School, this is one of my many locations in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. I have been licensed to do this class since 2019, and I am in good standing. My license is active in the state of Pennsylvania until October of 2025, which I will renew as I do every year. So you first want to verify that the school that you are thinking about investing in is a bona fide school. It is registered with the state and they can offer these transcripts. You could also, if you wanted to, ladies and gentlemen, do my license number. It'll still come up the same. Or if you wanted to do name search, notice that it gives us person search. So what if you wanted to check out a doctor, a cosmetologist, an insurance agent, a real estate agent? Doesn't matter. Again, you would first need to go to the board of the individual that you are looking to do some background search on. Once again, in this situation, it's real estate. So it's the real estate commission. And in this situation, let's do my name. Nelson, last name. Let's see if I can spell my name correctly. Very good. And Warren, first name. Let's do a search, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see, you will see that I am licensed here. Let's go with this. The old license, once you move up to the chain, they take away the old license. So we're going with the active license that I currently hold. And as you can see, I am a licensed broker in the state of Pennsylvania. So not only am I a licensed instructor to teach the class, but I've been doing this for a very long time, ladies and gentlemen. If we go back to some of the old license that I don't have anymore, because as you advance, if we go back, so you can see a real estate instructor, salesperson. But if we go back to the very first license that I ever had, a real estate standard salesperson, you will see that I've been licensed in the state of Pennsylvania since 2002. And then I got my broker's license. So this would be for my real estate salesperson, which is what you're going to be doing in this class, getting your real estate salesperson's license. But as you move up the chain, which we'll talk about in the class, and you want to become maybe a broker or associate broker, then your old license, your real estate salesperson license, will be replaced. And your new license that you advance to will take over. So as you can see now, I have a broker's license, and I am licensed until 2026 in good standing, ladies and gentlemen. So not only am I an active real estate broker, I'm also an instructor, director of the school. I'm going to share court cases. I'm going to share events. I'm going to bring this class to life. I'm going to try to put a little humor into it as well. But understand, first things first, that online real estate school is a bona fide school, licensed in the state of Pennsylvania to offer this 75-hour class and in good standing, ladies and gentlemen. So that was the first thing that you should always do as a student looking to enroll or invest in a school is check the Bureau of Professional Occupational Affairs website and verify that that school is legitimate. I was happy to show you how we done that. And again, you want to make sure that you're using the Real Estate Commission to verify the school as well. So now, ladies and gentlemen, the next thing you should do is read some reviews. I'm proud to say that I have over 200 five-star reviews. So if you read Google, you go Online Real Estate School Inc. Incorporated, Online Real Estate School Inc. Put that in the search engine, or put school near real estate school near me, real estate school in Pennsylvania, real estate school in Pittsburgh, real estate school in Philadelphia. It doesn't matter where we are. You'll see that I'll pop up at the search engines, top of the search engine. I'll show you how we do that in the class and how you're going to do it for your real estate business without paying a lot of money, because you're not going to have a lot of money when you get started in your real estate business. I'm going to show you all these things, but read my reviews. See what the students have said about my classes and the way that I teach. You'll see that none of these reviews are canned. They all come from the heart. And I think this will give you a good feeling, good understanding about should you invest in this class or not. So knowing that it's a legitimate school, licensed by the state, I'm legitimate. The school has all these reviews, over 200 five-star reviews. I think you're off to a good start in doing some research before making a decision. If you want to do a little bit more research, ladies and gentlemen, you can. You will see that my school has, if not the best, I am currently in the top of that list when it comes to pass fail ratios when my students go on to take the state exam. So naturally, I'm proud about that, but I won't boast about it. If you want to do more research, you will see that I have a very high pass fail ratio. Next, you're going to need to understand the manual that you will need for this class, ladies and gentlemen, and it's required by the state. And that manual that you're going to use for this class is called Modern Real Estate Practice in Pennsylvania, 15th edition. Let me show that to you as well, ladies and gentlemen. And this is basically what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen. Modern Real Estate Practice in Pennsylvania, 15th edition. So this is the book that you're going to need for the class. So now that you know that the school's the real deal, I'm the real deal, let's get down to learning about real estate, because that's what you came to this free class for. And I'm going to give you what I promised. Have a notepad or pencil ready, because we're going to start beginning your real estate education. Are you ready? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start with this first question. If you buy a property in the state of Pennsylvania with a 30-year mortgage, do you own that property day one, or do you own that property 30 years later when you make your final payment? So if you buy a property in the state of Pennsylvania, you're not buying it cash, you're getting a 30-year mortgage to buy this property. Do you own it day one, or do you own it 30 years later when you make your final payment? The answer is day one, ladies and gentlemen. Do not get the deed and the mortgage confused. The mortgage is a loan. The deed is ownership of the property. So in the state of Pennsylvania, we are known as fee simple subject to a condition subsequent. And this means, so what? You got a mortgage on a property, you get the deed day one. At the settlement table, the seller will sign the deed and you will accept the deed. This is known as delivery and acceptance. We'll talk about it. And notice that only the seller signing the deed in the state of Pennsylvania, the buyer does not. We will review this in our class, but giving you a clip note now. So the first thing that you're learning in this free class is there's a difference between what's known as the mortgage, which is a security instrument, a collateral instrument for the loan that the bank made, and the deed of you owning the property. In Pennsylvania, you get the deed day one. Doesn't matter that you get a 30-year mortgage. First lesson. Second lesson, I just said that you get the deed, but you hear the term title, deed and title. What is the difference between a deed and a title? And it's a very important difference, ladies and gentlemen. We sell property by deed, but we sell vehicles by title. So you have to understand that you are not buying a property and getting the title to the property. You're buying a property and getting the deed to the property. So what's the difference between deed and title? You ready to write this down? Ready to take a note? Write this down. The deed, D-E-E-D, unless you spell it backwards, then it would be D-E-E-D. It's the same way. Okay, it doesn't matter. So the deed, ladies and gentlemen, is the written instrument. It's the paper. So when it's got your name on it, it says you own the property. So the deed is the written instrument. Title is the process of making sure the deed is good. Title search, abstract the title, title certificate, title report, title insurance. So title is a process of making sure the deed is good. We sell property by deed. We do not sell property by title. So it's important that you understand, which you will through this class, the difference between a deed and a title. So there's next lesson. Deed, title. The deed is the paper. It's the instrument that has your name on it that says the seller sold it to you and you are the owner. The minute that you accept this deed is the minute you become the owner of the property in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay? So we sell property by deed. Title is the process of making sure the deed is good. No liens, no judgments, no encroachments, which we'll talk about, municipal repairs that have not been paid for. We'll talk about special assessments later. But in any event, we want to make sure that the seller is giving the buyer good and marketable title, which is in the contract. That is what the seller is supposed to deliver to the buyer. Good and marketable title. And we now know the title is the process of making sure that the deed is good. No liens, no judgments, everything is good. All right. So there's another little lesson for you. We've learned the difference between mortgage. What is mortgage, by the way? A mortgage is a legal document. You get two things when you borrow money to buy a property. You get a mortgage and a note. The note is your promise to make your payments for the next 30 years, but the mortgage is a legal document that allows the lender to foreclose on the property if you do not make your payments. So that mortgage is a legal document that makes the property that they're lending collateral or security. So it is a secured loan. They know if you don't make your payments, they'll foreclose on the property. And the way that they can foreclose on the property is through that legal document called a mortgage, which we'll talk more about in our classes. Okay. So you need to know right away, ladies and gentlemen, that your real estate license, the license that you're going to have in the state of Pennsylvania, will allow you to represent both residential and commercial, as well as industrial and agricultural properties. So you don't need a separate license to do commercial, a separate license to do residential. No. One real estate license in the state of Pennsylvania will allow you to handle all classes of property: residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and so forth. So first things first. And residential, we call residential 1 to 4 units. We'll talk about this. This is a legal term. This is what you'll see on the deed. This is something that you're going to need to know for the real estate exam. 1 to 4 units. 5 units and above will be considered commercial. 1 to 4 units, a single family property, a duplex, a triplex, a quadruplex would be residential. 1 to 4 units, residential. But what is a unit, ladies and gentlemen? What is a unit? 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units. What is a unit? And it has nothing to do with the bedrooms. Ready to write this down? A unit, ladies and gentlemen, is anything that has a kitchen and a bathroom. An efficiency apartment, there are no bedrooms, are there? The whole thing is just one big bedroom, but it's a unit. Anything that has a kitchen and a bathroom is a unit. For example, the first floor has 1 bedroom, kitchen and a bathroom. That's a 1 bedroom unit. Second floor has 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and a bathroom. It's a 2 bedroom unit. Third floor has 3 bedrooms, a kitchen and a bathroom. It's a 3 bedroom unit. So, but notice the efficiency apartment has no bedrooms, but it is an efficiency unit. You can still live in it. It has the kitchen, the bathroom, and the living arrangement all in one room. So a unit is anything that has a kitchen and a bathroom. Doesn't matter about the bedrooms. Okay. So there we go. There's another lesson for you in this free class that we are doing right now. Now, remember we talked about title, giving good and marketable title? Well, what's the difference? You hear this example, I have equitable title, or I have legal title. Is there a difference between equitable title and legal title? Yes, there is. And those who don't know will use terms that they don't understand. Oh, I got equitable title. I can sell the property. Well, you might not understand what you're saying. Equitable title gives the buyer an insurable interest in the property. Legal title means they own the property, their name's on the deed. So, equitable title, once again, you can write it down. Equitable title gives the buyer an insurable interest. And we'll talk more about that in class. Legal title is the deed that they own the property. So there's a difference between equitable title and legal title. But here's one that you probably heard, and you think you might know it, but you don't, because most people don't. Earnest money deposit. How about that? You heard that one, earnest money? Earnest money deposit? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's earnest money and there's deposit. But there's no such thing as earnest money deposit, not in the real estate arena. Uh, Earnest money is a financial term. And the banks, the lenders might use earnest money deposit in financial terms, but not in real estate terms. In real estate terms, it's deposit. So you need to know that there's earnest money and there's deposit, but there's no such thing as earnest money deposit. We have salt and we have pepper, but we don't have pepper. There's no pepper. Please pass the pepper, please. Doesn't exist, right? We have salt, we have pepper, we have earnest money, we have deposit. You ready to write this down, ladies and gentlemen? Next lesson, write this down. Earnest money is between the borrower and the lender. Earnest money is between the borrower and the lender. It's a financial term. Deposit is between the buyer and the seller. Deposit is a real estate term. Deposit is between the buyer and the seller. So there's earnest money and there's deposit. Let me show this to you as well, because we're going to go over contracts, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you these contracts and teach you how to use these contracts. But look at this contract. This is a standard contract that we're using under Pennsylvania. It's called a PAR form, Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. And notice that it says deposit. Notice that we might have to deal with an additional deposit. Notice my deposit's $500. Did it say earnest money? Did it say earnest money deposit? Not our contracts, ladies and gentlemen. So you're going to need to understand what our contracts say and don't say. And we can't be using words that doesn't exist or words that you don't understand. So it's very important that you understand. Deposit is a real estate term. Earnest money is a financial term. There are two different terms, and there's no such thing as earnest money deposit, not in the real estate arena, ladies and gentlemen. So there's your next lesson that you're learning in this free class. And I tried to tell you that you would learn more about real estate than you ever imagined. I think in just this little bit, you have learned how to do some research on the school before you sign up. You have understood the difference between a mortgage and a deed. You now understand, or starting to understand, title and deed. You're starting to understand collateral, what the mortgage is. You're starting to understand that your real estate license will allow you to do residential and commercial as well as industrial and agricultural. You're starting to understand what a unit is, anything that has a bathroom and a kitchen. We now are starting to understand there's a difference between equitable title and legal title. And now we just learned there's a difference between earnest money and deposit, and there's really no such thing as earnest money deposit. Yet, it is the number one misnomer in the real estate business. You hear everybody, including real estate professionals and lenders, all using earnest money deposit. It was just such a bad habit that everybody just still says it. But better be careful about the things you say, because they could have legal consequences on you later, especially trigger terms. We'll talk about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and using terms that you probably shouldn't use. We'll talk about that in the class as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're also going to talk about states that use mortgage. Pennsylvania, we sell properties by mortgages, but not every state does. Take Texas, for instance, as one of many states. There are no mortgages. They use what's known as a deed of trust, a deed in trust. And so, how do those states sell property? And what is that called, since they don't use mortgages in those states? Fee simple, fee simple, FEE. Fee simple is the highest legal form of ownership one could possibly have, as you'll learn. And in Pennsylvania, that fee simple is known as fee simple subject to a condition subsequent. Now, I know it doesn't roll off your tongue, but you'll learn it anyway. Fee simple subject to a condition subsequent. In other states that don't use a mortgage, like Texas, for instance, the fee simple in those states are called fee simple determinable. And it's a difference between how the bank works with the borrower on a foreclosure and how the banks work with a borrower when there's no court case involved, no foreclosure involved. So we're going to go over the investing in property and learning the states that use mortgages and the states that do not use mortgages, a title theory state, and a lien theory state. Pennsylvania is a lien theory state. The lender who gave you the 30-year mortgage only has a lien against your property. Their name's not on the deed. You own the property. The lender only has a lien. So we are known as a lien theory state in Pennsylvania. But other states like Texas, for instance, you won't get the deed until 30 years later when you make your final payment. Those are known as title theory states. There's no mortgage, there's no lien against the property like here in Pennsylvania. So we're going to talk about how other states do it compared to Pennsylvania. But since this is a Pennsylvania class, you're getting a license to practice real estate in the state of Pennsylvania. Naturally, we're going to be very specific about the laws of Pennsylvania. All right. But we will compare other states as well. Now, what about investing in property, ladies and gentlemen? Let me ask you a couple questions. Can you buy a property today and sell it tomorrow? Can you buy a property today, cash, sell it tomorrow? No. No, you probably won't be able to sell that property for at least 90 days. The title company will not allow the transfer of that deed to take place for at least 90 days. And that would be for legal reasons. The wholesale retail flip was one of those reasons that put an end to that. Also, there's a recording situation that we'll talk about in the public record recording, and a second search known as a bring down search, which usually takes place anywhere from 30 to 90 days after you buy the property. So, in order for those two legal processes to work, then chances are if you buy a property in Pennsylvania, you're not going to be able to resell it for probably at least 90 days. So, you can forget about buying a property today and selling it tomorrow. That doesn't exist, not in this state anyway. What about, can you buy a property no money down? Not not really. Not really. Maybe you could, but you're not buying the property for no money down. Here's why, ladies and gentlemen. You need three things in the state of Pennsylvania for a contract to be legal. Those three things that you need is signature, dates, and consideration. Again, signature, dates, consideration. These are the three things that you need for a contract for real estate to be legal. What is consideration? Money. Doesn't have to be money, but for the most part, it's money. You ever see a property transfer in Pennsylvania for $1? Well, that $1 was legal consideration. That $1 made it a legal contract. No such thing as a no money down or zero or free. No, that doesn't exist. Dedication exists. We'll talk about that later. But for the most part, you need consideration. Without consideration, at $1, you don't have a legal contract in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's the first thing you're going to need to know, that can you buy a property with no money down? Maybe with no money down, but can you buy the property for free? Can you get it for free? Chances are no. No, you're going to need some kind of consideration. $1. All right. What about the assignment deals? You've heard about them where I don't have to be a real estate agent. I find a buyer and a seller, or I make an arrangement to buy a property and I assign that agreement of sale to somebody else. Is that legal? Can you do that? For the most part, no. You can't. For several reasons. One, you don't have a real estate license. Two, I don't know any reputable real estate agent that will allow something like that to take place. And three, it doesn't show good faith. You didn't really want to buy the property. You were trying to make a deal and assign it to somebody else and never really had any intention of buying it anyway. So you were trying to make money, which you're probably not legally entitled to because you don't have a real estate license. So the assignment deal really doesn't work for the way that investors talk about using it. But let's take it a step further. What about if you want to assume somebody's mortgage, or can they assign their mortgage to you? You want to buy their property and take over their mortgage payment. Can you do this? Well, for the most part, most mortgages will have what's known as an alienation clause and an acceleration clause in it. And the alienation clause says that you basically need the bank's permission in order to assume a mortgage or the seller to assign that mortgage over to the buyer. That alienation clause in the mortgage will probably prevent you from doing so without the bank's permission. So we'll talk about that in our class as well. So we got to be real careful with the assignment deals. For the most part, they're probably not legal. And when they are legal, it's probably a third party that needs to approve it, like the lender. What about Airbnb? Can you operate a property in Pennsylvania, Airbnb? Because you see people doing it. Well, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, the state of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, they're really cracking down on it. Here's the first thing that you need to know. In order to operate a property legally as an Airbnb, that property has to be zoned hotel. If that property is zoned as a single family property, a multifamily property, a mixed use property, no, you cannot operate it legally as an Airbnb. Cannot operate that property legally as an Airbnb. The only way that you can do so is if the property is zoned hotel. All right. And I know you see people doing these things, ladies and gentlemen, but there's going to be a lot of problems that we'll talk about, especially the homeowner's insurance on that property because you're operating it illegally as an Airbnb. We'll talk more about this in the class so that you know what you can and cannot do. That's the important part of this class, ladies and gentlemen. It's not an investment class. It's not going to teach you techniques. It's going to teach you legally in the state of Pennsylvania what you can and cannot do. And this is the knowledge that you want to have if you want to get into real estate. All right. Can you do property management without a real estate license? Well, let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen. The minute that you take a lease and the minute that you take a security deposit, you better have a real estate license. Let me repeat that. The minute that you take a lease and the minute you take the security deposit, you better have a real estate license in the state of Pennsylvania with those two things. But can you manage property? Just renovate it, fix it up, and do stuff like that? Yeah, you don't need a real estate license to do those things. But you do need a real estate license to take the lease and the security deposit. We'll certainly talk about that in the class. But the only exception to this rule is if you own the property. You do not need a real estate license to rent out your property that your name's on the deed. You own it. You don't need a real estate license to rent it, and you don't need a real estate license to sell that property because you own it. But if your name's not on the deed of the property that you're renting or selling, you better have a real estate license. Otherwise, you're in a little bit of trouble, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of trouble. We'll talk more about it in the class. But if you don't own that property and you want to do property management, the minute you take the lease, the minute you take the security deposit, you better have a real estate license in the state of Pennsylvania. We'll talk more about that in class as well, ladies and gentlemen. Can you earn income from a real estate transaction without a real estate license? The answer is no. Let me ask you this question, ladies and gentlemen. Can you practice medical without a license? Can you practice law without a license? Well, guess what? In the state of Pennsylvania, you can't practice real estate without a license either. So the minute that you want to earn compensation, wholesale, retail, flip, you rent out the property for your neighbor and your neighbor gives you a few dollars for it, ladies and gentlemen, that would all be illegal unless you had a real estate license. The only way that you're allowed to earn any kind of compensation in the real estate arena is legally. You need a real estate license. Can't practice medical without a license, can't practice law without a license, and you can't practice real estate without a license in the state of Pennsylvania. So here's what I've done, ladies and gentlemen. I have given you a free class so far. And there's no doubt about it that you have learned more than you probably imagined you would in this free class. And the reason that I've done this is I want to encourage you to go ahead and get your real estate license. Ladies and gentlemen, that real estate license is your golden ticket. It's going to be your passport for life. Once you have a real estate license, you'll never be broke. You'll never be unemployed again. You'll never look for a job again in your life. Work will come to you. That will be so valuable. And again, with that real estate license, you now have the legal right to make money in real estate. So it's more than a diploma, it's more than a PhD, it is a license to make money. And so getting that real estate license, ladies and gentlemen, is such an achievement that one can do. And it will open up so many doors, so many roads, so many avenues for you that you just can't imagine the things that will happen to you now that you possess that real estate license. And we're not that far. It's a 75-hour state required class. And I teach this class, as you can see. But a lot of my students have a problem following their dream of becoming a real estate agent or getting into the business because of the money. These real estate classes cost anywhere from $500 to $700 on average, give or take. You know, we've seen them cheaper and more expensive, but let's say around $500 to $700. That's what these classes cost. And for a lot of students, that might be out of range. They just don't have that kind of money. So here's what I went ahead and done to make life a little easier for my students. My class is $598, and it has been for many years. And I've always offered two payment arrangements for my student over the years. Either $598, and that pays for real estate practice and real estate fundamentals. So you make the payment all at once. Or I was allowing my students to do two payments of $299. 299 for July, real estate fundamentals, and then 299 for August, real estate practice. However, some of my students still have a little bit of a struggle with that payment arrangement as well. So now I've gone ahead and incorporated a third payment arrangement to see if I can make the dream of becoming a real estate agent a little bit more feasible. I now offer a four payment arrangement of $150. And the way that this works is you pay $150 now to secure your seat anytime between now and July 1st. $150 to secure your seat. Your second payment, which is a biweekly payment, will be July 25th of $150. Your third payment will be August 15th of $150. And your fourth payment will be August 29th of $150. This will be your $598, $600 altogether. But if you can't do the 598 all at once, if you still can't do the 299, two payments of 299, then hopefully four payments of 150 will make this dream a reality for you so that you can become licensed in the state of Pennsylvania as a licensed real estate professional. If you can invest $150 in yourself, ladies and gentlemen, you are in the process of making more money than you'll ever make in your lifetime. With that real estate license, you have a license to make money. I've seen people spend that kind of money in a casino, on a purse, on a jacket. But to get you to invest in yourself is always seems to be a little bit of a struggle. I would encourage you because if you're still looking at this video, it means you have that entrepreneur blood going through your veins. You are an achiever, an overachiever. You're a leader, not a follower. And somehow or another, you're going to make it work. You want it to work. So I would invest, if I was you, the $150 into your future. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, my class starts July 1st. I just introduced this $150 arrangement in my last class. So this is really the first time that students are taking me up on it. And it's happening very quickly because students are jumping into the class. The class starts July 1st. But since you're getting this email, and I've sent out a lot of these emails, a lot of students are jumping on it. I'm telling you right now, look at today's date. Look at the date. I have, I'm looking at my calendar here. I have 42 seats remaining in my morning class, and I have 37 seats remaining in my evening class. That's how fast these classes are going right now because of this $150 arrangement that I've now offered my students. I would strongly suggest that you don't wait until the end of June to try to make this payment. I might have to tell you that the class is already sold out. So I'm happy to offer this arrangement, and hopefully it'll help you achieve the goal of becoming a licensed real estate professional. But because I am offering this now, students are obviously taking advantage of it. So I would encourage you to do so as well. Secure your seat. My morning class is 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, 9 to 1. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, starting July 1st. My evening class is 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, starting July 1st. So it's an 8-week class, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for July and August. That would be the 75 hours. In my class, not only will I prep you to pass the state exam, I'm also going to teach you how to run a real estate business. I'm going to teach you how to invest in property legally and ethically. I am going to teach you memory techniques in the class. There's no sense of learning if you can't remember the things that you're learning. And once you take my class, ladies and gentlemen, you never have to pay for it again. You can come back to any of my future classes anytime you want, free of charge. So please, in this email that you see, you have your Shopify links. If you don't have a credit card, then you can use the Cash App link, or if you like, directly from your bank account, the Zelle link. So I encourage you to make this investment. Use the links that are in this email to get started. Good luck on your real estate journey, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking forward to seeing you in my class, and I'm looking forward to making you a licensed real estate professional in 2025.